Hi there, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the first installment of the meditation series. Back to give you a next follow-up. For those of you who may already have meditation experience, keep in mind this is probably a little bit repetitive for you or maybe redundant to what you've already learned. But of course, repetition is always great, and you may always pick up some small little sliver of information or an idea that might help in your practice currently. The series that I've built so far that will continue hopefully moving forward is really just about trying to give people a way to start with a practice. Of course, this series is going out particularly right now when we're managing a pandemic. And so I'm trying to give people some simple tools and understanding around meditation so that hopefully you'll be willing to step in and start doing something on your own, even if it's 3 to 5 minutes here and there, or if it's just a comfortable place to sit and learn to be able to breathe and start to downregulate the body a little bit would be great. So today, the 3 Ps of meditation, what that really references, there's no such thing as the 3 Ps of meditation, by the way. I just gave you that as a quick kind of mnemonic to remember yourself. The first being positions. What positions might I meditate in? The second being props. What kind of props might help me in those positions to provide a good condition for success? And then third, of course, is practices. There is a myriad of practices, but the practices I'm going to address today are practices for fundamental positions for the body that will help out. So let's jump right in. The first one, position. So there are 3 fundamental positions or some variations of those, which would be standing meditation. I'll explain. Sitting meditation, which is the most common. You'll notice I asterisk that one, so we're going to talk about that the most. And then of course laying meditation. And laying meditation very often leads into sleep, so that's not such a bad thing really, especially if you're having trouble sleeping. This can be an excellent segue into that. But of those 3, seated is the most common that most people are accustomed to, and it's also the one that provides us the most control over the longest duration of time with the deepest level of relaxation, physical and mental relaxation. So that's the one we're going to talk about today. Standing, just to review real briefly, because many people are not familiar with standing meditation. It almost seems strange that you would be able to meditate while standing, but there is a practice called Zanzhuang, which has been around for quite some time and is a very successful practice in meditation and also in energy work as well. We'll be talking about that one in a different series because Zanzhuang is really great for boosting the immune system. So when I do the immune booster series, we'll probably be talking about and doing a bit of that practice. Maybe we'll touch on it in here a bit as well. So Zanzhuang is a literally as it sounds, is to stand, and they are stand in several different postures. You don't have to necessarily even know what those postures are. When I teach this in my classes at my school, very often I'll advocate the students go home and just try to stand still without moving in the first posture for 10 to 15 minutes and see how that goes. And for most of you, you'll have a very interesting conversation with your mind and your body just for 10 to 15 minutes of being still. So it's a practice we can build on. We'll go into another time. But let's talk about seated because it's the most common, and let's talk about the next component, which is props. So props is pretty important. And one of the reasons why props are so important is because our end goal really, especially in the beginning phase, is to be able to relax the body as deeply as possible, which allows the mind to relax and the breath to relax. And this is kind of a virtuous cycle that continues to move us deeper into relaxation. So anything we can do that can help provide a more relaxing, comfortable position for us is important. I didn't list it in there, but of course, being too full or too hungry, that's problematic. Certainly anything that causes discomfort or pain, also problematic because it's going to cause the mind to be distracted, which is going to lead your focus of either deeper relaxation or concentration away. And we want to try to avoid those scenarios. So sitting like this, for example, you don't need to sit like this. You could sit in any number of different ways, which we're going to talk about. But the props would be important. So the first series of props for sitting meditation would be a chair, a bench, or a couch. So chair, bench, or couch, notice, is not going to be in this kind of a position. It's going to be me sitting in a chair, a bench, or a couch. The main thing I want you to try to focus on for that is that my knees are at a 90-degree angle to the bench. So if I'm going to be sitting, I want to try to have a 90-degree angle, and I want to try to have my feet on the floor as best I can. Some of my best meditation sessions personally have been done at a dining room chair. Or of course at one of my teachers' halls where I'm frankly in a plastic folding chair. I've done some adjustments to make that happen, but even in the chair. So chairs are common for us as long as the body position is great and you don't have circulation being cut off the bottom of the leg, meaning the chair is not biting into the hamstrings, or that my leg is at a strange angle, an off angle, tilted back, etc., or too high so my feet are dangling. We definitely don't want that. So ideally a 90-degree position where the feet are touching the floor and we're at 90 degrees or so from the leg, from the femur down to the shins. Now, that can of course be in any one of those upright seated positions where my legs are actually dropping down. This is one of the reasons for brand new people when we talk about meditation. Very often you feel like, well, I feel all pretzeled and my legs hurt, my body's in a bad position and I'm uncomfortable, so I don't want to do it. This to me is one of the most important things for people to say, oh, so I can meditate anywhere. Yes, anywhere, nearly any time, as long as this thing can calm down. But even if it's too busy for my mind to really calm down, I can calm my body and my breath down. And in the very next recording I do, I'll talk more in detail about body, breath, and mind coordination and how this cycle works and how we can try to find our way into that pattern a little bit better. But I can sit in any one of those positions, and for those of you who are brand new, I would really advocate this one first. What it allows me to do is sit comfortably in a position I'm completely familiar with. Couches, by the way, have a tendency to be really squishy in the tail, which means it changes the angle quite dramatically. But another prop here I can talk about in a second is a cushion. So I can prop my tail up on cushions in the couch and still use that. But like I said, a dining room chair, a folding chair, a garage chair, anything like that can work well as long as I focus on those prerequisites of a 90-degree angle in the legs, feet flat on the floor, not cutting off the circulation in the low back, which brings me to my next component, and that is being sure that my posture is upright. So I can move to the floor like I'm doing right now with some additional props. I can move to the floor. I can also sit on a cushion, and I don't know if you can see this one, but this is referred to as a zafu cushion or a series of cushions. They come in various different shapes or sizes, but they're basically, this one is to allow the legs to drop at an angle, so you can get something like that. And then there are also just individual zafu cushions, which are like this. And of course you don't need a secondary cushion. You can use a couch cushion. I can sit on this cushion all by itself is just fine too. So any of those are okay. And then a blanket, I can also, if you don't have to go buy special stuff, I can take a regular blanket, fold that up into a nice thick square or two and lay them on the floor and prop myself right up on those. And most of us have blankets at home or cushions that work just fine as well. For those of you who like goodies, if you don't want that kind of a cushion, or you find yourself in other places where you'd like to meditate, but you can't take your cushions and all that goodies with you, some time ago, I ran across a product, and I'm not affiliated with them, called Nada Chair. N-A-D-A, Nada Chair. They've been around for quite some time. I mean, well over 20 years, as long as I've known them. And mine got swiped, so I don't have one anymore to show you, but they are still live and active. They're not super inexpensive, $50 to $80. And I noticed last time I checked, they have a lot of different options there. So you may want to find the one that works right for you. The neat thing that I enjoyed about them is the straps that hold the shins fold inside, and the thing zips up into something that you can carry along with you or pack, which is really kind of nice to take along. So there's another series of props. And then lastly, props for clothes as well. Something that's loose fitting is always really good. A blanket not just to sit on, but to drape over your shoulders, especially if there's a chill in the room. Of course, outside that might be a little bit strange and you got to be careful about wind and weather there. But if you're inside practicing on your own, and especially if you're practicing in the morning, having a blanket that's around you, or very often I'll start with a blanket or a sweatshirt and just drape it over me so that I'm nice and warm. I don't want to be hot, of course, so you want to be just right. Not too hot, not too cold. But I can always, even in meditation, if I find myself getting too warm, I can either just shrug that free and slide right back into my meditation, no problem. So that's a great tool to have along to help keep me warm. And then of course, pillows for support. So this is a really important one, and it goes back to the Nada chair as well. One of the biggest problems with sitting for any length of time is slouching. And most of us don't have very strong low backs. So slouching, especially me, I'm a little bit taller, gives us this kind of sulking feeling in the body. As you meditate for longer periods of time, your body also begins to relax and sulk very often. If it doesn't sulk, then who is keeping it vertical? Your mind is keeping it vertical, which means my mind is not relaxing as deeply as it could. So I'm sure there are other meditators out there who will be frustrated about that response, but just keep in mind, how do I sit upright? That's not a neutral, unregulated position, especially as I relax deeply. It's a position that must be regulated by the mind. Even at a very low level, the mind has to be active to keep me vertical. So cushions can be a great one. If I sit up against a wall here, if I sit in a cushion, this one would be great. For example, if I had one cushion that I sat on for my meditation practice, and I had another really big couch cushion I could stuff behind my back, that would allow me to sit, and then instead of my body slouching, my body would get stopped by that cushion, pillow, etc., to just relax freely and be comfortable so that I could fully relax deeply into my position. So those are some really good props that are important about setting yourself up for success. And then I'm going to talk just a little bit about the hand positions, tongue, physical placement, etc., and those types of things for you. So the first one is hand positions. What do I do with these things that are hanging out? So there's several different options, as many as you'd like. You can simply just drop your hands in front of you and it's fine. If you want to be a little bit more intentional with that, there are many different mudras, hand positions, or what we call hand stamp positions in Taoist approach. But there are many different things. You can research and take a peek on those. Don't go too far down the rabbit hole. They talk a lot about, just don't go too far down the rabbit hole with mudras, in my opinion. But some very simple ones. If I'm sitting and I'm comfortable, I can turn my hands palm face up as if I have a small teacup in my hands, and I can place those on the tips of my knees. For me personally, I don't like this position because when I sit here, my arms always want to fold in. That's just some latent tension in my body, which, remember about sitting up, means that I have to kind of actively keep my body in this position. So the most common one that you'll tend to find is one hand inside the other, either right or left, doesn't matter which, and set comfortably right in the center of the lap here. This is an important one from a Qigong science perspective because we're really focused on the lower dantian. The lower dantian is actually one of a common chakras from a yogic tradition as well. We have 7 matching gates. They call them chakras, but gates. So it's the same process in a central corridor within the body. But putting these hands here helps me to bring my intention to the lower dantian. So putting my hands here is great. Whereas if my hands are out, I don't necessarily find this. And if you come back to these, or you end up coming to a meditation class online with me, or actually in class, if we can get past this hiccup in our experience here in the world and get back to normal training, and you come in to visit, we have meditation classes during the week, and we'll be doing them virtually as well. So for those, you may find we'll be doing very different practices with the hands. This allows us to at least just bring our mind awareness to that lower center, which is important. So hand positions, those are kind of important. And then I'm going to talk about tongue position. That might seem like a strange one, but tongue position is important as well. So without going too deep into it, there are 2 vessels that run around the body like a zipper seam. The one that goes up the front is the conception vessel, and the one that goes down the back is the governing vessel. And they run, like I said, like a zipper all the way around the body, but they connect inside the mouth. The governing vessel terminates at the top of the palate. The conception vessel picks up underneath that and drops down to the body. So one of the reasons why we can speak is because that vessel is broken, which allows energy or vocal transmission to move through the mouth. So when we use the tongue, what we do is, if you imagine this being the palate, roof of the palate, and this being the teeth, we touch the tongue, and I think I addressed this maybe in the last video, I'm not sure, but we touch the tongue towards the center of the palate. So not the teeth. I'm going to move further back inside and just gently touch the roof of the palate with the tongue. So I'm not pressuring it. I'm not creating tension in the jaw or the lower jaw. I'm just touching gently. That allows the electric circuit to connect through those two vessels. I'm doing lots of recording, so my mind is a little bit mushy here and there. So forgive me. So we want to just try to keep that circuit better connected by having the tongue gently touching against the roof of the palate all the while, which means I need to breathe through my nose as best I can. Posture, that one's really important. So I want to get as deep as I can into relaxation, but I do want to be sitting in a vertical posture. Does that mean that I need to be super spine erect? I'm sure there are yogis out there who will tell you absolutely, but go back to my original point, which was, how do I stay super erect for an hour? Not through deep relaxation. It means that a circuit inside my mind has to be managing my body's position in order to be there. There are some tips and tricks to be able to adjust the body's pelvic angle, etc., to be able to relax more freely there, but I'm here to tell you that in deep meditation, in a semi-sleeping state, your body, unless you're very short, starts to sag and change. So that's okay as I go deeper into relaxation. I just don't want to be slouching and falling over. So whatever I can do to keep my posture relatively vertical, stuffing pillows or cushions, etc. Also, by the way, underneath the knees, this is another great place to stuff cushions. So if sitting on the floor is your thing, you'd like to do that, and your knees or maybe it feels a little bit too wide for your sitting position, you can easily take some pillows to prop those up and just hold the knees so that you can relax deeply into that position. It's also very common that the feet bind in the bottom when they touch together. So for us, we can separate the feet and create a measure of distance. You will find numbness or pain start to accumulate there, especially for newer practitioners. In the first 3 to 6 months, that's a really common experience. So don't be surprised if it does. But I can also try to mitigate that a little bit by putting maybe a little bit of that blanket in between the two to try to give it some separation and allow them to slide freely together. So posture and relaxation is important. Just to clarify, some of you might have seen me say posture, why, or relaxation. Posture may change somewhat or become more important when we're doing higher level Qigong meditative practices. So some of the more challenging Qigong meditative practices require certain positions over another. So for example, I may not be in a standing position to do other practices, or they may be less beneficial, etc. So there we start to get, as you go further into the tree of Qigong, from a meditative perspective, we tend to start to create, I don't want to say rules, but some guidelines that are a little bit more rigid. So relaxation for us, especially starting a brand new practice, is the number one focus. How do I relax as deeply and completely as possible to allow the body to relax, to allow the energy to flow, and allow the mind and the breath to calm down? And then lastly, which brings us to breath body assess. So the very first step I would like for you to be able to try to do, you can work with these to build your own ideal position or two. I would encourage you to try to build one position, maybe again in a dining room chair or somewhere that you're comfortable in your home, where you can check off those 90-degree angles, use some extra pillows, and get really comfortable with yourself. Try the tongue on the roof of the palate, and then maybe try another position, either sitting on the floor or sitting on some cushions. Try to set up another structure. I personally like to have a spot right next to my bed because if for some reason I wake up in the middle of the night and I'd like to sit and meditate, I'll slide right over to the wall and pop right into my cushion and drop into meditation instead. If I get sleepy again after that, no problem. I just crawl right back into bed. So breath and body assess is the very first thing that I typically have people start doing, which means get one of those positions that you set up for yourself at home. Get comfortable in that position. So sit comfortably, relax yourself, relax your breath, and just begin to pay attention to where your breath is coming from and to assess how much body tension you might be holding. So is the breath coming from the abdomen? Is it coming from the chest? Do I feel tension inside my body when I breathe? Am I holding my breath or relaxing my breath? So in other words, I don't want you to go into the idea of starting a meditative practice and immediately trying to accomplish something. That's not a great way to approach it. To be able to step in and to just find out, I'm just going to quiet myself down, relax my body and my breath, and just go inward to see what's going on with my body, where there may be tension, how my body is breathing, how that respiration is working, and how that's making me feel. 5 or 10 minutes of that is great. You can't overdo meditation, so enjoy. If you find you've got a lot of free time at home right now, spend some time, 5 or 10 minutes in the morning, afternoon, and evening. Your body's going to feel different in each case as well. So you'll start to feel some different things there. On the next session that we get together in, I'll probably try to pare it down just a little bit more as far as time. And what we'll do is we'll step into some more specifics about regulating the mind, narrowing our focus and attention on what's happening with the breath and the body, and then where we go from there. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the session today. I hope you'll start that practice at home and begin to build something. Find that seated position that works best for you or two, and maybe try to touch a little bit on how the breath is working. Keep the tongue on the roof of the palate, decent posture, and just do some body and breath assessment. And I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.